Hey guys, Sierra Bailey here with Accel Commercial Real Estate. The video you're watching ties into our event in June, Accelerate. If you want to learn more about what you see today, scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description to get your tickets now before early bird pricing runs out. Enjoy the video.
So
I always think of Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore. Woe is me. It's what a wonderful day. It's raining somewhere.
isn't it funny? Because, I like to view a story like that. I love stories. The brain loves stories. But all of those characters are us. I don't mean we're each of them. I mean all of them together. So are we listening to our inner Eeyore? Or are we listening to, Piglet or Winnie? And because your point of view shifts dramatically depending on how your brain is working. You're either swimming upstream against all that negativity to try and achieve your goals, or, you turn the tide around and it's carrying you forward. So first of all, if we can take our focus back from all the electronics and give ourselves some space, what we really want to cultivate, and this is again straight out of a coaching model, and I think you'll recognize it's the scientific method, it's true for business. We want to be able to say, this is what I'm interested in. This is where I want to get to. People think of like vision boarding or The Secret. We want to take that and make it a lot deeper though. I want you to know that you're going to head to more assets externally, but what about internally? Are you going to upgrade the emotional home that you live in? Because that's really the piece that makes your life better, right? If you're completely happy, you can live in a small house and it's fine. If your house gets really big, if your business gets really big, and I've seen this, people who manage billions of dollars are nothing but anxious. They're incredibly successful externally. So what I really want to facilitate is both, right? If you start on the inside, first of all, making sure that your brain is working for you as much as possible, and you have a clear sense. And when I say that, I mean really an embodied sense. You can feel what it's like to wake up like 3 to 5 years from now. You guys are young. 10 years from now, right? This is not SMART goals. This is your dream, your vision. You don't know how you're going to get there. If you already know how you're going to get there, you're probably not thinking big enough. When you ask most people what they want, they tell you what they think they can get. It's less inspiring by a long shot, right? So what we want to do is have something that truly inspires us and feel that inspiration. That's the energy that you want to solve today's problems with. So let's talk about clear-eyed solving of problems, right? Because all of this positivity does not mean that I'm advocating for optimism.
This is an important point.
Yeah.
This is really important, especially in our industry.
Yeah.
So I have experience, and if you don't mind me just taking a second.
Please.
It's that competence versus confidence. Competence versus confidence. And there's a little bit of a dance in there. And I think he's going to talk a little bit about that. And sometimes we have those guys that they hold themselves back and they say, I'm not going to do anything. I can't, that's not me. I just can't do it. And then you have kind of the opposite of that. It's okay, I've read this one book on syndication, and now I'm an expert on syndication. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go and find someone who's going to invest all their money with me so that I can go and find this one, and make my dreams come true. In and of itself, that is not a bad aspiration, but the competence versus confidence. Do you understand kind of that delicate balance? So
Well, can I jump in?
Yeah, please do.
So it's really it's important to understand, where does confidence come from? And it's from what you've already done, right? You're competent in things you've already done. I think of it as courage or faith, right? The faith that I can somehow figure out how to do something I've never done before, whether I've read a book or not. And this comes back to the aspect of, who's on your team. There are two real problems. Oh, I know how to do that, or I don't know how to do that. These are just two examples of mindset, right? I know how to do that. Do you? Maybe. But often you don't know what you don't know. When you're, starting in a new adventure like that, it's really dangerous if you have it all figured out in here. And that's your source of confidence, because the scientific method is you go apply your knowledge, right? Tony Robbins' mentor said, if you're learning for the sake of knowledge, you become a fool. If you're learning to change your life, then you're actually learning something. If you have all this big map in here all figured out, your brain is this flight simulator, and according to the book, everything's going to be fine. Well, it's really important that you have it road tested. When you apply that knowledge, reality gives you feedback on whether or not you know anything that's going to actually work. What you want is somebody over here to connect with who's done it many times before you, so that they can say, hey, let's talk about this. I mean, is that fair?
Yeah, well, and I think the key, how we're talking about that autopilot, you can have that work for you if you have the right autopiloting. In other words, so if you're doing your own mental priming to where you have those healthy habits, where you use the scientific method and you use the things that are going to help you achieve those goals, those can actually be, catapults or springboards, because your mental state is, I can overcome adversity. I can do all. So focusing the focus on those things that are going to actually truly give you traction.
So let's talk about that a little bit. One of them is connections with other people who have skills that you don't have and can expand your point of view, right? When you have people on your team, think about it in terms of perspective. No matter what you know, it's just such a tiny slice of what there is to know. Right?
Dang it, I want to know it all. Someday.
Yeah, I was staring at a library in Cornell, and it was like, I think it went 3 stories into the ground and 4 stories up or something like that. And every story, I was just looking at it from the outside, but every story had these giant stacks. The ceilings were higher than this, and they'd have these people seen this kind of thing? These giant stacks of books, and they would just, the whole thing would have to roll, and because they'd have too many of them, loaded with books. And that was one of 13 libraries. And I was like, I'm never going to know anything, right? I'm never going to know anything. There's just so much to know. There was a book in there, like huge book on how 1 + 1 = 2. And there was a companion to it proving it was wrong. It was just like,
wow.
So the endless knowledge is wearying, right? We're never going to know it all. So if you think, well, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, what can you do about that? Nobody knows everything. People who are doing this aren't necessarily smarter than you. They probably have experiences you haven't had yet. So you need to connect with people. If you think you do know everything, then, please, right? Because that's not a safe way to feel.
I don't need help. No helping allowed.
The optimists die first is what Stockdale said. He was the highest ranking military guy in Vietnam who was captured. And, the guy who said, oh, we'll be out by Christmas. And they weren't out by Christmas. Oh, well, we'll be out by Easter. And they weren't out by Easter. they were dead before next Christmas. Their hearts just broke. Their spirits just broke. Stockdale was there 8 years. He said, optimism has to be grounded. You retain the faith that you will prevail in the end while you're facing the brutality of the facts as they are. You don't know how long the runway is before your business takes off. The last thing you want to do is crash and burn before you get started because you miscalculated.
You're only just that far away
Oh
from
my
being able
gosh.
to do it.
I was in a speculative gas and oil company once, and the lead kept saying, "Oh my gosh, in 2 weeks, those
That's
jack
gonna
things
go.
in 2 weeks." I swear to God, he said that for 2 years. It's 15 years later. So, he had moved from financial markets into a business that he'd seen his whole life, but he'd never done. So his optimism was unfortunately completely ungrounded. So grounded optimism is really important. I'm a big believer in that positive mentality, and you have to use that to deal with the things that aren't positive. You got to face the difficulties head on. So the mindsets here, the positive one we call sage because it's wisdom. This mindset has 5 qualities I just want to list for you quickly. The first one is empathy. The next one is curiosity. So like if you're a leader, you have to know your business. Trey, what an amazing knowledge he has, but he's also paying attention, right? He's curious about the other things going on out there that he has to figure out now that the administration changed, or now that the market's done this or that or the other. I don't even know what he's, right? That's amazingly important stuff to stay connected to what you don't know, what you have to learn. Empathy. That was what was so cool about talking with you or, listening to Trey and Brian talk. They're not doing this alone. One of them has one function and one has another. And the ability to connect with people beyond yourself is huge. Principle is the third one. And this has to do with, first of all, that vision. If you're living the right life for you, it's going to bring you joy. It shouldn't just be heavy lifting the whole time. There might be some difficult moments, but there's a joy. When I decided I'm not going to be an engineer, the first thing I did was telemarketing, right? But I was so happy because I knew I was on a new path. And then I ended up in a doctoral program. But innovation, it's a natural thing for us to be creative. If we're in a non-stressed place, if we're in a place of positivity. And that doesn't mean that life isn't hard. It means that you have the mental discipline to stay positive and strong, even when life is hard. And the last one is decisive action. And, if you have all of these inner dynamics going for you, then just having a plan, right? And this is where, honestly, knowing how the brain works, we have to deal in habits.
Mhm.
The brain is incredibly driven by habit. The estimate right now that I've heard from this guy, Darren Hardy, Success Magazine, 95% of your brain is powered by habit. 5% is emotion, and your intelligence is sort of an afterthought.
I actually have one superpower.
Hmm.
And my superpower is that I know that I am weak. So it means that I set myself up so I know that my inner brain is a toddler. And if I left my life up to what I felt like doing or wanted to do, or that I have got about 2 weeks of willpower tops, if I'm highly, highly motivated. So my one and only way that I have been able to get around that is to make whatever the situation is that I want to change in my life so smooth and greased and focused that I can't possibly fail. And that is, so I know that probably sounds really funny, but the reality is I just assume that if I'm gonna leave it up to me and willpower, it ain't gonna happen.
Actually, this are really smart. Given how limited willpower is in your brain, and the more stressed you are, the worse it is. If you, like if you go in to buy a car and they spend 4 hours in that little room with you and they wear out your ability to choose, does everybody have that experience? So there's no reason you shouldn't buy this. And it's like, no, thank you. We use up willpower. We use up our mental gas every day. The wise one will use willpower, as limited as it is, to create powerful habits. Aristotle said, success is not a behavior, it's a habit.
Thanks for watching this video. If you like what you see, be sure to follow our Generational Wealth Learning series. On select Thursdays, we offer cutting-edge industry information that would normally cost thousands of dollars. And the best part, our education is absolutely free. If you register through our events page, you can join us live, either in person or over Zoom. In the meantime, like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a beat.